There's something remarkable happening in Japan right now. People in their 80s and 90s are moving through their days with a lightness and strength that would exhaust many Americans half their age. They're squatting to garden, balancing on one foot to slip on shoes, and walking miles without a second thought. Meanwhile, here in the States, nearly 40% of adults over 65 report significant difficulty with basic mobility tasks like climbing 10 stairs or standing from a chair. That gap isn't genetics. It's not luck. It's 7 simple movements woven into the fabric of daily life that most of us have completely abandoned. What's buried in the research coming out of Okinawa and other longevity hotspots is this. The exercises that matter most after 60 aren't the ones you do in a gym for an hour 3 times a week. They're the movements you return to every single day. Movements so simple they feel almost too easy, yet so precisely designed that they rebuild the exact functions aging tries to steal from you. Balance, hip mobility, ankle strength, the ability to get up off the floor without using your hands. These aren't luxuries. They're the difference between independence and limitation, between confidence and fear, between living fully and merely existing. Here's what most fitness advice for older adults gets wrong. It assumes you need equipment, a trainer, or some complex routine you'll abandon after 2 weeks. The Japanese model flips that completely. These 7 movements require nothing but your body and a few minutes. You can do them in your bedroom, your kitchen, even your backyard. They don't demand flexibility you've already lost or strength you haven't built yet. They meet you exactly where you are and quietly, steadily, restore what you thought was gone forever. Now, before we walk through each one, I want you to do something. Drop a comment right now with your age and where you're watching from. Just your age and city or country. I'm curious how far this message is traveling and who's ready to make a change today. No need to share anything else. Just let me know you're here. The 7 movements we're about to explore are arranged from the simplest to the most transformative. Number 7 is something you can start within the next 60 seconds. Number 1 is a practice so powerful it's been shown to predict how many years of independent life you have left. And number 2, well, number 2 surprises everyone because it involves a part of your body you've probably ignored for decades, but Japanese seniors consider it the foundation of everything. Let's begin. Movement number 7 is called Kakato Otoshi, which translates simply to heel drops. You're going to stand with your feet hip-width apart, hands resting lightly on a counter or the back of a sturdy chair for balance. Rise up onto the balls of your feet as high as you comfortably can. Hold that position for 1 full breath. Then drop your heels down to the floor with a gentle but deliberate impact. Not a slam, just a firm contact. That's 1 repetition. You're going to do 20 of these, once in the morning and once in the evening. Why does this matter? Every time your heel strikes the ground with that small controlled force, you send a signal through your bones. That signal tells your body to maintain bone density, to keep calcium where it belongs, to resist the thinning that leads to fractures. Osteoporosis isn't inevitable. It's often the result of bones that never receive the loading stimulus they need. Walking on soft surfaces in cushioned shoes all day doesn't deliver enough impact. Heel drops do research tracking older. Adults in Japan found that those who practiced regular impact loading exercises maintained significantly better bone density in the hips and spine compared to those who only walked for exercise. The hips and spine are exactly where fractures become life-threatening after 60. A broken hip isn't just painful. It triggers a cascade of immobility, muscle loss, and complications that can end independence permanently. Preventing that fracture starts with a signal you send to your bones twice a day. I worked with a woman named Helen, 72, a retired librarian from Ohio who loved gardening but had stopped bending over her flower beds because she was terrified of falling and breaking something. Her doctor had told her she had osteopenia, the stage before full osteoporosis, and she'd become so cautious she barely moved. I introduced her to heel drops, 20 in the morning while her coffee brewed, 20 in the evening while she watched the news. She could hold the counter. She could go as high or as low as felt safe. Within 3 weeks, Helen told me she felt more solid on her feet. After 2 months, her follow-up scan showed her bone density had stabilized and even improved slightly in her lumbar spine. 6 months later, she was back in her garden, squatting and digging, no longer afraid. Here's how to make heel drops work for you. Start with your hands on a stable surface. If you feel unsteady, rise only halfway onto your toes at first. The drop is what matters more than the height. As you get stronger, try doing a few repetitions with just your fingertips on the counter, then eventually hands-free. You can add a small weight in each hand once 20 reps feels easy, but only if your balance is solid. Never rush the drop. It's controlled impact, not a crash. And if you have any history of Achilles tendon issues or severe ankle arthritis, keep the range smaller and focus on consistency over intensity. The beauty of heel drops is they take 90 seconds. You can do them while you wait for anything. Coffee, microwave, toothbrush. Fold them into moments that already exist in your day, and they'll never feel like exercise. They'll just become part of how you stand, and your bones will remember every single one. Now here's the movement that surprised me when I first saw Japanese seniors doing it with such focus. Movement number 6, Ashiyubi Janken. That translates to toe rock paper scissors, but don't let the playful name fool you. This is a serious intervention for foot strength and balance, and almost no one in the West does anything like it. You're going to sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, shoes and socks off. Now, spread all 10 toes as wide apart as you can, like you're making a fan with your foot. Hold that for 3 seconds. That's rock. Next, curl all your toes downward as if you're trying to grip the floor and pull it toward you. Hold for 3 seconds. That's paper. Finally, lift just your big toe while pressing the other 4 toes down into the ground. Hold 3 seconds, then reverse it, pressing the big toe down while lifting the other 4. That's scissors. Do this sequence 10 times on each foot, once in the morning. Your feet are not dumb blocks of flesh meant to sit inside shoes all day. They contain 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments in each foot. Those structures are designed to adapt to uneven ground, absorb shock, and provide real-time feedback to your brain about where your body is in space. That feedback is called proprioception, and it's one of the main reasons people fall as they age. When your feet go numb, weak, and immobile from decades of rigid footwear and flat surfaces, your brain loses critical balance information. You sway, you stumble, you fall. Studies on fall prevention consistently show that foot strength and toe flexibility are strong predictors of balance performance in older adults. In some community programs in Japan where toe exercises were introduced, participants showed measurable improvements in single-leg stance time and walking stability within just 4 weeks. The foot is the foundation. If the foundation is weak, everything above it compensates and fails. Meet Robert, 68, a former high school coach from Florida who'd developed neuropathy in his feet from years of poorly controlled blood sugar. He described his feet as feeling like blocks of wood, no sensation, no control. He'd already fallen twice in 6 months, once in his driveway and once getting out of the shower. His confidence was shattered. I taught him Ashiyubi Janken. At first, he couldn't even spread his toes. They just sat there, stiff and unresponsive, but he kept at it, every morning, sitting on the edge of his bed working each toe individually. After about 10 days, he could finally fan them a little. After a month, he could do the full sequence. The surprise came around week 6. Robert called me and said he could feel the floor again. Not completely, but more than he had in years. His balance improved. He stopped shuffling. He started walking his dog again without fear. That was 8 months ago. He hasn't fallen since. Here's your protocol. Sit somewhere comfortable where you can see your feet. Go slow. If your toes don't move much at first, use your hands to gently assist them through the motions. That's not cheating, it's teaching. Over time, the neural pathways will wake up and your toes will start obeying your commands without help. If you have severe arthritis in your toes, work within a pain-free range and focus on whatever movement is available. Even tiny improvements in toe mobility translate to better balance. Do this every single morning. It takes about 3 minutes. Your feet will thank you, and so will your brain. You're probably starting to see a pattern here. These movements aren't about burning calories or building bulk. They're about restoring specific functions that modern life has stripped away. Movement number 5 continues that theme with something called Koshi no Tenkai, which means hip rotation or hip swivel. This is where we address one of the most dangerous limitations people over 60 develop without even noticing it. Frozen hips. Stand next to a wall or counter for light support. Feet shoulder width apart. Keep your upper body relatively still and your feet planted. Now rotate your hips to the right as far as they'll comfortably go, like you're trying to point your belt buckle to the right wall. Hold for 2 seconds. Return to center. Rotate to the left. Hold. Return. That's 1 cycle. Do 10 cycles, twice a day. As you get comfortable with this, try lifting the hand off the support for a few reps. Eventually, you'll do all 10 cycles hands-free. Hip rotation is one of the first movement patterns you lose as you age, and losing it has cascading consequences. When your hips can't rotate, your lower back compensates every time you turn to look behind you, reach for something to the side, or get in and out of a car. That compensation leads to chronic low back pain, disc problems, and a shuffling gait that makes you look and feel older than you are. Worse, limited hip rotation destabilizes your pelvis, which destabilizes your knees and ankles. It's a chain reaction of dysfunction that starts in the hips. There's data from physical therapy assessments showing that older adults with less than 20 degrees of internal hip rotation have significantly higher rates of falls and mobility limitations. The hip joint is a ball and socket designed for multi-directional movement. When you only move it forward and backward, like in walking, the rotational range atrophies. The connective tissue tightens. The joint capsule shrinks. You end up with a hip that's strong in one plane and helpless in every other direction. I think of Margaret, 74, a retired nurse from Pennsylvania who came to me because she couldn't garden anymore, not because her knees hurt or her back was weak, but because every time she knelt down and tried to twist to reach a different plant, her whole body would lock up. She'd have to stand, reposition her feet, and kneel again. Gardening, which she loved, had become exhausting and frustrating. We tested her hip rotation. She had maybe 10 degrees internal rotation on each side. For context, a healthy hip should have 30 to 40 degrees. We started Koshi no Tenkai. 10 reps morning and night just standing in her kitchen. Within 2 weeks, she could feel a difference. After a month, she had nearly 25 degrees of rotation. She sent me a photo from her garden, kneeling in the dirt with a huge smile surrounded by tomato plants. That was the win. Not a number on a test, but the ability to do what she loved without her body fighting her. Here's how to progress this movement safely. Start with your hand on a solid surface. Focus on moving from the hips, not twisting your knees or arching your back. Your feet stay flat and forward. If you feel any pinching in the front of your hip, reduce the range and move slower. As your hips open up, try adding a slight squat to the rotation. Stand with feet wide, sink into a shallow squat, then rotate your hips right and left from that position. This adds a stability challenge and deepens the stretch. But only go there once the basic version feels easy. Never force rotation. Hips open slowly, but they do open if you're consistent. Twice a day, 10 cycles. That's 4 minutes total. And in return, you get hips that move the way they were designed to move, a lower back that stops screaming at you, and the ability to turn, twist, and navigate your world without thinking about it. That's the goal. Movement that doesn't require thought because your body is capable again. Movement number 4 is where we start combining strength and balance in a way that directly mimics real life. This one is called Shiko, which comes from sumo training, and it's a deep squat stance shift that builds hip and ankle strength while challenging your balance in a safe, controlled way. You've probably seen sumo wrestlers lift one leg high and stomp it down. We're not doing that. We're taking the foundation of that movement and making it perfect for 60-plus bodies. Stand with your feet wider than shoulder width, toes pointed slightly outward. Place your hands on your hips or hold them in front of you for balance. Slowly lower yourself into a squat, only as deep as feels stable. Your knees track over your toes, your chest stays upright, and your weight is evenly distributed. From this squat position, shift your weight onto your right leg, allowing your left heel to lift slightly off the ground. Hold for 3 seconds. Shift your weight onto your left leg. Right heel lift slightly. Hold for 3 seconds. That's 1 repetition. Do 5 repetitions, once in the morning. As you build strength, try going a little deeper into the squat or holding the single leg weight shift a bit longer. Why is this so effective? Shiko forces your body to stabilize in a position most people over 60 avoid entirely, the deep squat. Squatting is a fundamental human resting position that we've engineered out of our lives with chairs and toilets. But the ability to squat and stand back up without assistance is one of the most reliable markers of longevity and independence. When you can't squat, you can't get down to play with grandkids. You can't sit on the ground at a picnic. You can't retrieve something from a low shelf without risk. You become a person who lives only at chair height. Research from Brazil on older adults found that the ability to sit on the floor and stand back up without using your hands, called the sitting-rising test, was a powerful predictor of mortality. Those who could do it with minimal support had dramatically better survival rates over the next several years compared to those who couldn't. Shiko doesn't just train the squat pattern. It trains single-leg stability, which is even more important. Every step you take is a single-leg stance. Stairs, curbs, uneven ground, all single-leg challenges. Shiko makes you strong and stable in exactly those positions. Let me tell you about Carlos, 66, a retired electrician from Texas who'd stopped doing any kind of home repair because he couldn't crouch down to work on outlets or under sinks anymore. His knees weren't painful, they just felt weak and unreliable. He was frustrated because he'd always been the guy who fixed everything, and now he was hiring people for simple jobs. I introduced him to Shiko. At first he couldn't squat more than a few inches. His ankles were tight, his hips were tight, and his balance was shaky. I had him hold onto a door frame and just practice the stance, no weight shifting yet. After a week he could squat to about a 45-degree angle. After 3 weeks, he could shift his weight side to side without holding on. 2 months in, Carlos sent me a video of himself crouched down installing a new light switch, steady as a rock. He said it felt like getting a part of himself back. That's what these movements do. They give you back pieces of yourself you thought were gone. Here's how to make Shiko safe and effective. Start shallow. If a deep squat isn't available yet, just go as low as you can while keeping your heels on the ground and your balance solid. Hold on to a countertop or sturdy chair for support in the beginning. The weight shift is the key element, not the depth. As your ankles and hips open up over weeks, you'll naturally sink lower. Don't rush it. If you have knee pain, make sure your knees aren't caving inward. Push them gently outward so they track over your toes. If squatting feels completely impossible right now, start with a simple sit to stand from a chair, then progress to holding the bottom position of the sit for a few seconds before standing. Build the pattern first, then add range. 1 set of 5 reps every morning is enough. It takes about 2 minutes. Over time, Shiko will transform your lower body strength and give you the confidence to move through your day without hesitation. That's the real victory. Not just being strong, but feeling capable. Now we arrive at movement number 3, and this is where a lot of people start to feel the magic. It's called Katahiza, which means single leg kneeling, and it's essentially the bottom position of a lunge held with perfect posture. You're going to kneel on your right knee with your left foot flat on the floor in front of you, left knee bent at 90 degrees. Your torso is upright, hands resting on your left thigh. From this position, gently press your hips forward a few inches, feeling a stretch through the front of your right hip. Hold for 30 seconds. Switch sides. Do this twice on each leg, once a day. This movement targets one of the tightest, most neglected areas in the aging body, the hip flexors. These are the muscles at the front of your hip that lift your knee toward your chest. When you sit for hours every day, which most people do, those hip flexors shorten and tighten. Tight hip flexors pull your pelvis forward, which flattens your lower back, which leads to back pain, poor posture, and a shuffling stride. You end up walking with short steps and a forward lean, the classic old person gait. That gait isn't age, it's tight hips. Data from gait analysis studies shows that older adults with restricted hip extension, meaning they can't push their hip backward into a full stride, walk significantly slower and have much higher fall risk. Walking speed is one of the most important vital signs we have for predicting health outcomes in older adults. Slow walkers die sooner. It's that simple. And one of the main reasons people slow down is because their hips won't extend. Katahiza directly stretches the hip flexors and trains your body to access that extension again. I remember Linda, 71, a retired teacher from Michigan who told me she felt like she was shrinking. Not in height, though she'd lost a little of that too, but in presence. She walked hunched forward looking at the ground, taking tiny steps. She said she felt invisible, like her body was apologizing for taking up space. We started with Katahiza. The first time she tried it, she couldn't press her hips forward even an inch. The front of her hips were so tight it felt like concrete. But she stuck with it, 60 seconds total every day, just kneeling and gently coaxing those hips open. After about 3 weeks, Linda sent me a message that made me smile. She said she'd caught her reflection in a store window and didn't recognize herself at first because she was standing up straight. Her hips had opened enough that her pelvis could sit in a neutral position, and her whole posture had changed. She felt taller, more confident, more visible. That was 5 months ago. She walks faster now, longer strides, head up, all from 2 minutes a day of kneeling. Here's your protocol. Kneel on a soft surface like a yoga mat or folded towel to protect your knee. If kneeling is too uncomfortable, you can do a standing version. Step your left foot forward into a lunge stance, keeping your right heel on the ground, and gently press your hips forward. You'll feel the same stretch. Hold for 30 seconds, breathe deeply, don't bounce. Switch sides. Twice through, once a day. As your hips open up, you can add a small reach overhead with your arms, which intensifies the stretch through the whole front chain of your body. But start simple. Just kneel and press. Let time do the work. Katahiza is one of those movements that feels subtle at first but delivers profound changes. Your hips will open, your posture will improve, your stride will lengthen, and you'll walk into rooms like you own them again, not like you're apologizing for being there. That shift in how you carry yourself is worth more than any pill or procedure. Before we get to the top 2 movements, let me ask you something. Have you tried balancing on one foot recently? I mean, really tried, eyes open, for more than a few seconds. Try it right now if you're somewhere safe. Stand up, pick up one foot, and see how long you can hold it. Don't worry about the number. Just notice how it feels. Is it steady or shaky? Do you have to flail your arms? Can you do it at all? Drop a comment and let me know. Just a quick yes or no, and if you want, how many seconds you made it. I'm curious where everyone is starting from. Movement number 2 is the one that surprises people because it involves a body part you probably haven't thought about in years. This is Shita Undou, which means tongue exercise, and yes, you read that right. Tongue exercise. Japanese seniors practice specific tongue movements every day because they understand something most Western doctors don't talk about. Your tongue strength directly affects your ability to swallow, speak clearly, and even breathe properly at night. Weak tongue muscles are a hidden epidemic in older adults, and they lead to choking, aspiration pneumonia, and severe sleep apnea. Let's fix that. Sit or stand comfortably. Open your mouth and stick your tongue out as far as it will go, pointing it straight ahead. Hold for 5 seconds. Pull it back in. Now stick it out again and point it up toward your nose. Hold 5 seconds. Pull it back. Stick it out and point it down toward your chin. Hold 5 seconds. Pull it back. Finally, stick it out and move it side to side, touching the corners of your mouth. 10 reps side to side. Do this entire sequence twice a day, morning and evening. It takes about 90 seconds. Why does this matter so much? Your tongue is a muscle, and like any muscle, it weakens with disuse. When your tongue weakens, it can't propel food and liquid to the back of your throat efficiently. You start coughing when you drink. Food gets stuck. You avoid certain textures because they're hard to manage. This is called dysphagia, difficulty swallowing, and it affects up to 40% of people over 70. The consequences are serious. Aspiration, when food or liquid goes into your lungs instead of your stomach, causes pneumonia. Aspiration pneumonia is one of the leading causes of death in older adults. It's preventable with a strong tongue. There's also the breathing component. When you sleep, if your tongue is weak, it falls backward into your airway. This causes snoring and obstructive sleep apnea, where you stop breathing repeatedly throughout the night. Sleep apnea doesn't just make you tired. It increases your risk of heart attack, stroke, dementia, and early death. Strengthening the tongue has been shown in multiple studies to reduce apnea severity and improve sleep quality without needing a CPAP machine. I worked with a man named George, 73, a retired pharmacist from Georgia who'd started choking on water several times a week. His wife was terrified every meal would be the one where he couldn't recover. He'd seen a speech therapist who confirmed his tongue strength was very poor and his swallow was uncoordinated. They gave him some exercises, but he found them confusing and didn't stick with them. I simplified it for him. Stick your tongue out, point it in 4 directions, move it side to side. Twice a day, every day. George committed. He set a timer on his phone. Within 2 weeks, he noticed he wasn't coughing as much when he drank. After a month, he could eat a full meal without a single incident. His wife cried when she called to tell me. She said it felt like they'd been given their life back, that the fear that had been hanging over every meal was gone. That's what a strong tongue does. It keeps you safe. Here's how to make sure you're doing this right. Stick your tongue out as far as possible. It should feel like a strong stretch. Don't just poke it out lazily, push it. When you point it up, down, and side to side, move through the full range. The side-to-side movement is especially important because it mimics the action your tongue uses to move food around your mouth. If you have TMJ or jaw pain, go gently and work within a comfortable range. If sticking your tongue out feels awkward or embarrassing, do it in private. Bathroom mirror, morning and night. No one needs to see it but you, but do it. Your swallowing safety depends on it, and so does your sleep. Twice a day. 90 seconds total. That's it. And in return, you get a tongue that works, a swallow that's safe, and sleep that's deeper and more restorative. Don't skip this one because it seems silly. It's not. It's life-saving. Now we come to movement number 1, the most powerful, the most predictive, the movement that Japanese seniors treat with reverence because they know what it represents. This is called Tatami Karatachi, which means standing from the floor, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to sit down on the floor and stand back up, using as little assistance as possible. Ideally, no hands. But we'll meet you where you are and build toward that. Here's the baseline version. Sit down on the floor however you need to. Cross-legged is fine. Kneeling is fine. Just get down there safely. Now stand back up. Use your hands for support if you need to, but try to minimize it. If you have to push off the floor with both hands and use a chair to pull yourself up, that's your starting point. No judgment, just information. Do this once a day, every single day, and over time, use less support. Go from 2 hands to 1 hand, from 1 hand to fingertips, from fingertips to no hands. That progression might take weeks or months. It doesn't matter. The practice is what counts. Why is this movement number 1? Because the sitting-rising test I mentioned earlier is one of the most powerful predictors of longevity we have. Researchers followed thousands of older adults and found that those who could sit and rise from the floor without support had a fraction of the mortality risk compared to those who needed significant help. The test isn't magic. It's a window into your total body function. To sit and rise without hands, you need hip mobility, knee strength, ankle flexibility, core stability, balance, and coordination. It's a full system check. When you can do it, your body is capable. When you can't, your body is fragile. Most people over 60 haven't sat on the floor in years. They've lost the movement pattern entirely. Their hips don't flex that deeply. Their knees don't bend that far. Their ankles are stiff. Their core is weak. And because they never practice it, it gets harder and harder until one day it's impossible. That's when independence ends. When you can't get down and back up, you can't recover from a fall. You can't help yourself. You become dependent. This movement is the antidote. Think about Janet, 69, a retired accountant from Arizona who told me she felt like a prisoner in her own body. She loved the idea of sitting on the floor to stretch or play with her grandkids, but she physically couldn't do it. Getting down was hard. Getting back up was impossible without grabbing furniture and hauling herself up, which left her feeling embarrassed and old. We started Tatami Tachi. At first, Janet used a chair, a hand on the floor, and a lot of effort. We practiced once a day. After 2 weeks, she could do it with one hand on the chair. After a month, she could do it with just fingertips on the chair for balance. 6 weeks in, she stood up from the floor without touching anything. She sent me a video, and you could see the shock and joy on her face when she realized she'd done it. She stood there in her living room, laughing, almost crying, saying, "I did it, I did it." That moment changed her self-image. She wasn't old and fragile. She was capable and strong. She started sitting on the floor to read every evening, just because she could. That's power. Here's your protocol. Clear a space on the floor with nothing sharp or hard nearby. Sit down in whatever way feels safest. If you need to start from kneeling or all fours, that's fine. Now reverse the process to stand up. Use whatever support you need, but pay attention to how much you're using. That's your baseline. Each week, try to reduce the support slightly. If you're using 2 hands on the floor, try using one hand and making the other hand lighter. If you're pulling on a chair, try just steadying yourself on the chair instead of pulling. The goal isn't to do it perfectly today. The goal is to do it every day and slowly reclaim the movement. If you have significant knee arthritis or joint replacements, modify this. You might never get to a full sight on the floor, and that's okay. You can practice lowering yourself to a low stool or cushion and standing back up from there. The principle is the same. Lower your center of gravity, then stand back up with control. Build the strength and pattern. Once a day, every day. It might take you 2 minutes at first, and that's fine. As you get stronger and more confident, it'll take 30 seconds. But the daily practice is non-negotiable. This movement is a conversation with your body. You're telling it that you expect it to be capable, and your body will respond. It always does. Let me tie this all together for you. These 7 movements: Kakato Otoshi heel drops, Ashiyubi Janken 2 exercises, Koshi no Tenkai hip rotation, Shiko squat stance shifts, Katahiza single leg kneeling, Shita Undou tongue exercises, and Tatami Tachi sitting and rising are not a workout. They're a restoration project. You're not training for a marathon. You're rebuilding the fundamental capacities that aging and modern living have eroded: bone density, foot strength, hip mobility, lower body power, postural integrity, swallowing safety, total body function. Each movement addresses a specific vulnerability that puts people over 60 at risk for falls, fractures, dependence, and early death. The Japanese model works because it's built into daily rhythm. These movements aren't an event. They're not something you schedule and then dread. They're woven into the moments between other things. Heel drops while coffee brews, toe exercises while you sit, hip rotations while you stand at the counter, Shiko in the morning, Katahiza after lunch, tongue exercises while you brush your teeth, sitting and rising once before bed. 15 minutes total spread across the day. That's the brilliance. It's so simple and so repeatable that you can do it for the rest of your life. Here's what's going to happen if you commit to this. In the first week, you'll feel awkward. Some of the movements will be hard. Your toes might not move. Your hips might not rotate. Your tongue will feel weird. That's fine. You're waking things up. By week 2, you'll start to notice small changes. Better balance. Less stiffness. A tiny bit more range. By week 4, the movements will feel easier, almost automatic. By week 8, you'll look back and realize you're moving differently. You're more stable. You're standing taller. You're not thinking about every step. By 6 months, these movements will be so embedded in your routine that not doing them feels strange. And the cumulative effect will be profound. You'll be stronger, more mobile, more confident, and more independent than you were 6 months ago. At 60 plus, that trajectory is everything. I want to be clear about something. These movements aren't a replacement for medical care. If you have pain, dizziness, uncontrolled health conditions, or any concerns, talk to your doctor before you start. These movements are designed to be safe and gentle, but your individual situation matters. Get clearance if you need it, and once you start, listen to your body. Some discomfort as you stretch and strengthen is normal. Sharp pain is not. Back off if something hurts. Modify if you need to. The goal is progress, not perfection. There's a concept in Japanese culture called kaizen, which means continuous improvement. Small changes, repeated consistently, lead to extraordinary results. That's what these 7 movements represent. You're not overhauling your life. You're making 7 small deposits into your physical bank account every single day. Over time, those deposits compound. The return is a body that works, a mind that's confident, and a life that's fully lived, not limited by fear or inability. One more thing. These movements work best when you stack them with habits you already have. Pair heel drops with your morning coffee. Do toe exercises while you watch the news. Hip rotations while you cook dinner. Shiko right after you get dressed. Katahiza after you check the mail. Tongue exercises while you brush your teeth. Sitting and rising before you go to bed. When you anchor new behaviors to existing routines, they stick. Your brain loves patterns. Give it a pattern and it'll run that pattern automatically. That's how these movements become part of who you are, not something you have to remember to do. Let's talk about progression for a moment. You might be wondering how long you should do these movements at the beginner level before you advance. The answer is simple. When something feels easy and stable for at least 2 weeks, you're ready to progress. If heel drops with 2 hands on the counter feels solid, try 1 hand. If Shiko at a shallow depth feels comfortable, go a little deeper. If Katahiza with a short hold feels manageable, hold it longer. Your body will tell you when it's ready for more challenge. Don't rush, but don't stay stuck either. There's always a next level, and chasing that next level keeps you engaged and improving. Some of you are going to start these movements and see dramatic changes quickly. Others will see slower progress. That's normal. Your starting point, your injury history, your genetics, your consistency, all of it matters. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Compare yourself to where you were last week. If you're even 1% better, you're winning. And 1% better every week for a year is a completely different body and life. Trust the process. Now, I want to address something that stops a lot of people before they even start. The voice in your head that says it's too late, that you're too old, that the damage is done. That voice is a liar. Study after study shows that older adults can build strength, improve balance, increase flexibility, and regain function well into their 80s and 90s. Your body wants to be capable. It's designed to adapt. You just have to give it the right stimulus consistently. Age is not the barrier. Inactivity is the barrier. Inactivity is the barrier. Inconsistency is the barrier. The belief that you can't change is the barrier. But those barriers crumble the moment you start moving intentionally. Let me tell you about something researchers have observed in Okinawa, one of the blue zones where people regularly live past 100 in good health. They don't have fancy gyms. They don't have personal trainers or expensive equipment. What they have is a culture that expects movement throughout the day. They sit on the floor, so they're constantly lowering and raising their bodies. They tend gardens, so they're squatting and reaching and balancing on uneven ground. They walk to visit neighbors. They prepare food from scratch, which means chopping and stirring and moving. The 7 movements we've covered aren't exotic secrets. They're simply the movement patterns that used to be built into everyone's daily life before we engineered physical effort out of existence. You can't turn back time and change how cities are built or how technology has transformed daily living. But you can make a conscious choice to reintroduce the movements that matter. 15 minutes a day, 7 simple practices. That's the bridge between the sedentary modern world and the active longevity model that actually works. Here's what I want you to understand about balance specifically, because it comes up in so many of these movements. Balance isn't a fixed trait you either have or don't have. It's a skill your nervous system maintains through constant practice. Every time you challenge your balance, even slightly, you're forcing your brain to coordinate signals from your inner ear, your vision, and the sensors in your muscles and joints. That coordination is what keeps you upright. When you stop challenging it, the system degrades. You become unsteady not because you're old, but because your nervous system hasn't had to solve a balance problem in months or years. Heel drops challenge your balance as you rise and lower. Toe exercises improve the sensory feedback from your feet. Hip rotations force your pelvis to stabilize while your upper body stays still. Shiko trains single-leg balance in a squat position. Katahiza challenges your balance as you shift weight in a kneeling position. Sitting and rising from the floor is perhaps the ultimate balance test. Even tongue exercises contribute by improving your overall body awareness and control. These aren't 7 separate movements. They're 7 angles of attack on the same problem, keeping your nervous system sharp and your body stable. Falls are not inevitable. Let me say that again. Falls are not an inevitable part of aging. They're the result of specific deficits that can be addressed. Weak legs, poor balance, slow reactions, limited hip mobility, numb feet, environmental hazards. Most of those are fixable. A person who does these 7 movements every day, who has strong bones from heel drops, responsive feet from toe exercises, mobile hips from rotations and Katahiza, powerful legs from Shiko, and proven full-body function from sitting and rising, is not the same fall risk as someone who's been sedentary for years. Not even close. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. The psychological benefit of physical capability. When you know your body works, when you trust it to catch you if you stumble, when you can move through space without fear or hesitation, everything changes. You go places you would have avoided. You say yes to activities you would have declined. You engage with life instead of retreating from it. The confidence that comes from a capable body is priceless. It affects your mood, your social connections, your willingness to try new things. It keeps you in the game. I've seen this transformation hundreds of times. Someone starts these movements because they're afraid of falling, or because they can't keep up with grandkids, or because their doctor scared them with a bone density scan. They start reluctantly, skeptically, but then something shifts. They realize they're getting stronger. They notice they can do things they couldn't do a month ago. That realization is rocket fuel. Suddenly, they're motivated not by fear, but by possibility. They start asking what else they can do. They start setting goals. They start living differently. That shift from fear-based to possibility-based thinking is one of the greatest gifts movement can give you. Now let's address some common obstacles you might face. First, time. You're thinking you don't have 15 minutes. I'm telling you that you do, but you have to find them differently. These movements don't require a block of time. They require moments. 2 minutes here while you wait for something. 3 minutes there before you sit down to eat. 90 seconds before bed. String those moments together and you've got your 15 minutes. If you genuinely can't find moments in your day, then your day is structured in a way that's incompatible with health. Something has to change, and it's not the movements. Second obstacle, motivation. Some days you won't feel like doing this. That's normal. Motivation is unreliable. What you need is a system. The habit stack I mentioned earlier is the system. You don't rely on motivation. You rely on the trigger. Coffee brews, you do heel drops. You sit down to read the paper, you do toe exercises. You walk past the kitchen counter, you do hip rotations. The trigger initiates the behavior automatically. Build the triggers and you won't need motivation. Third obstacle: pain or limitation. Maybe you have arthritis. Maybe you've had surgery. Maybe something just hurts. That doesn't disqualify you. It means you modify. Can't do a full Shiko squat? Do a quarter squat. Can't kneel for Katahiza? Do the standing lunge version. Can't sit all the way on the floor for Tatami Karatachi? Lower yourself to a cushion or low stool. The principle matters more than the exact form. Work within your capacity and let that capacity expand over time. If you need help figuring out modifications, a physical therapist can guide you. But don't let limitation become an excuse for doing nothing. Fourth obstacle: skepticism. You're thinking this sounds too simple to work. I understand. We're conditioned to believe that solutions have to be complicated and expensive. But the most powerful interventions in health are often the simplest. Eat real food. Move your body. Sleep enough. Connect with people. Manage stress. These aren't sexy. They don't come in a pill bottle or require a prescription. But they work. The 7 movements we've covered are grounded in biomechanics, neuroscience, and decades of observation. They work because they address the actual problems aging bodies face. Give them 8 weeks of honest effort and judge for yourself. Let me paint a picture of what your day could look like. You wake up. Before you even leave your bedroom, you do Tatami Karatachi. You sit on the floor next to your bed and stand back up. 30 seconds. You head to the bathroom, brush your teeth, and while you're brushing, you do Shita Undou tongue exercises. Another 90 seconds. You go to the kitchen, start your coffee, and while it brews, you do Kakato Otoshi heel drops, holding the counter. 2 minutes. You sit down with your coffee and the paper, and before you start reading, you do Ashiyubi Janken toe exercises. 3 minutes. Mid-morning, you're standing at the counter making lunch. You do Koshi no Tenkai, hip rotations. 2 minutes. After lunch, you spend 2 minutes on the floor doing Katahiza, the kneeling hip stretch. Evening, before dinner, you do Shiko, the squat stance shifts in your living room. 2 minutes. Add it up. That's about 15 minutes, none of which felt like exercise. It just felt like living, but living with intention. That's the model. That's how you sustain this for years. It's not a program you start and stop. It's a way of inhabiting your body. And the beauty is that once these movements become automatic, they don't take mental energy. You don't have to decide whether to do them. You just do them because that's what you do. That's who you are now. You're someone who takes care of their body, not someday, but today, in small, consistent ways. Here's something else that matters: community and accountability. If you live with someone, teach them these movements. Do them together. It's easier to stay consistent when you're not alone. If you live alone, tell a friend or family member what you're doing. Send them updates. Share your progress. Accountability increases follow-through dramatically. You can also find online communities of people focused on healthy aging. Share your experience. Learn from others. Celebrate wins together. Movement is personal, but it doesn't have to be solitary. Some of you are wondering whether you should be doing other exercise in addition to these 7 movements. The answer is yes, if you enjoy it and it fits your life. Walking is fantastic. Swimming is easy on the joints. Tai Chi is wonderful for balance and calm. Strength training with light weights or resistance bands builds muscle. Yoga improves flexibility and body awareness. These 7 movements are the foundation, not the ceiling. They ensure you have the core capacities you need to stay independent. Anything else you add is bonus. But if you can only do one thing, do these 7. They give you the most return for the least investment. Let's talk about expectations around results, because this is where people often get discouraged. In the first month, the changes will be subtle. You might not see anything dramatic. You'll feel a little steadier, a little less stiff. That's the foundation being built. Month 2, you'll start to notice real differences. Better balance, easier movement, tasks that were hard becoming manageable. Month 3 and beyond, the compounding kicks in. You're not just maintaining, you're improving. Your body is adapting, strengthening, becoming more capable. By 6 months, the transformation is undeniable. You move differently. You feel different. Other people notice. That's the timeline. Trust it. One of the most common mistakes people make is expecting linear progress. Some weeks you'll feel great and make big gains. Other weeks you'll feel stuck or even slightly worse. That's normal. Progress is never a straight line. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, then 3 steps forward. The trend over time is what matters, not the day-to-day fluctuations. Keep showing up. Keep doing the movements. The trend will take care of itself. I want to revisit the sitting-rising test for a moment because it's worth understanding why it's so predictive. When researchers score this test, they start you at 10 points. You lose 1 point for every support you use. Hand on the floor, lose a point. Hand on your knee, lose a point. Wobbling or losing balance, lose a point. The goal is to sit and rise with a score of 8 or higher, meaning minimal support. Studies found that people who scored 0 to 3 had a 5 to 6 times higher risk of death over 6 years compared to those who scored 8 to 10. That's not a small difference. That's a massive signal about overall physical resilience. But here's the hopeful part. That score is not fixed. You can improve it. Every person I've worked with who committed to daily Tatami Karatachi practice improved their score within 2 months. Some went from needing both hands and a chair to needing just one hand. Some went from one hand to no hands. The movement is trainable, and training it changes your risk profile. That's empowering. You're not stuck with the body you have right now. You can build a better one. Let's get practical about tracking progress because what gets measured gets managed. You don't need anything fancy. Just a notebook or a note on your phone. Each week, jot down a few observations. How many heel drops can you do before fatigue? Can your toes spread wider than last week? How far can your hips rotate? How deep can you squat in Shiko? How long can you hold the Katahiza stretch comfortably? Can you sit and rise with less support? These simple notes give you feedback. When you look back after a month, you'll see progress you might not have noticed day to day. That feedback loop keeps you motivated and engaged. Another practical tip is to do a monthly balance test. Stand on one foot, eyes open, and time how long you can hold it. Write down the number. A healthy adult should be able to hold single-leg stance for at least 30 seconds. If you can't, that's okay. It's just information. Test again in a month. You'll see improvement if you've been consistent with the movements, especially heel drops, toe exercises, Shiko, and sitting rising. Watching that number climb from 10 seconds to 20 to 30 and beyond is incredibly satisfying. It's proof that your nervous system is adapting. Now, I want to talk about setbacks, because they will happen. You'll get sick and miss a week. You'll travel and fall out of routine. You'll have a flare-up of pain that makes certain movements uncomfortable. That's life. The key is not to let a setback become a stopping point. If you miss a week, start again. Don't wait for Monday or the first of the month. Start the day you remember. If a movement hurts, modify it or skip it temporarily and do the others. The goal is not perfection. The goal is persistence. The people who succeed long-term are not the ones who never miss. They're the ones who always come back. There's a Japanese proverb that says, fall 7 times, stand up 8. That's the mindset. You will stumble. You will have days where you don't feel like doing this or where life gets in the way. Stand back up. Start again. The movements will be there waiting for you. Your body will be there ready to respond. All you have to do is show up. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about what these movements represent in the bigger picture of aging. We live in a culture that treats aging as a decline to be managed with pills and procedures. The dominant narrative is that your body will inevitably break down, lose function, and require more and more medical intervention just to maintain a baseline. That narrative is deeply disempowering. It turns you into a passive patient waiting for the next thing to go wrong. The Japanese model, and the model these 7 movements embody, flips that script. It says aging is a process you participate in actively. Yes, there are changes you can't control, but there are far more things you can influence than you've been led to believe. Your bone density, your balance, your strength, your flexibility, your swallow safety, your posture, your gait, your confidence. These are all responsive to what you do every single day. You're not powerless. You're actually deeply powerful if you choose to exercise that power. These 7 movements are a declaration. You're declaring that you expect your body to work, that you're willing to invest 15 minutes a day to make sure it does, that you refuse to accept limitation as inevitable. That's a radical stance in a culture that encourages older adults to slow down, take it easy, and lower expectations. I'm telling you to raise your expectations. Expect more from your body. Demand more, and then give it what it needs to deliver. What it needs is not complicated. It's not a miracle supplement or a breakthrough drug or an expensive gadget. It's movement. Specific, intentional, daily movement that addresses the exact vulnerabilities aging creates. That's the gift the Japanese model offers. Simplicity, accessibility, effectiveness. You don't need permission from a doctor, though you should inform them of what you're doing. You don't need to join a gym or hire a trainer. You don't need to wait for anything. You can start today, right now, in your own home with nothing but your body and the floor. I've seen these movements change lives, not in a metaphorical way, in a literal, concrete way. People who were afraid to leave their house because they might fall are now traveling. People who couldn't play with grandkids are now on the floor building blocks with them. People who felt invisible and diminished are walking tall and engaging with the world. That's not luck. That's not genetics. That's the result of small, consistent actions compounded over time. You have a choice in front of you right now. You can close this video and go back to whatever you were doing, and nothing changes. Your body continues on its current trajectory, which for most people over 60 is a slow decline in function and confidence. Or you can decide that starting today, you're going to do something different. 15 minutes a day, 7 movements. A commitment to yourself that you're worth the effort, that your independence matters, that you want to live fully, not just exist cautiously. If you choose the second path, here's what I need you to do. Start with just 1 movement tomorrow. Not all 7, just 1. Pick the one that feels most doable or most needed. Maybe it's heel drops because you're worried about bone density. Maybe it's sitting and rising because you want to know if you can still do it. Maybe it's tongue exercises because you've been coughing when you drink. Just 1. Do that 1 movement every day for a week. Once it feels like a habit, add a second movement. A week later, add a third. Build slowly. By the end of a month, you'll be doing all 7. And it won't feel overwhelming because you built the routine 1 piece at a time. Or, if you're the type who prefers to jump in fully, do all 7 starting tomorrow. Map them to your existing routine. Set reminders on your phone if you need to. Tell someone what you're doing, so there's accountability. Give it 8 weeks of honest effort. Track your progress. Notice what changes. At the end of 8 weeks, evaluate. If you don't feel significantly better, more stable, more capable, then you can decide it's not for you. But I'll bet everything that you will feel better. I've yet to meet someone who did these movements consistently for 2 months and didn't experience a meaningful improvement in how they move and feel. Let me tell you one more story, and then I'll let you go. Her name was Dorothy, 82, a retired nurse from Oregon. She lived alone, fiercely independent, terrified of losing that independence. She'd already fallen once, bruised her hip badly, and spent a week barely able to move. She was convinced the next fall would be the one that put her in a nursing home. When I introduced her to these movements, she looked at me like I was insane. She said she was too old, too weak, too far gone. I told her to just try 1 movement. Heel drops. That's it. She did heel drops for a week. Then she added toe exercises. Then hip rotations. By the end of the first month, she was doing all 7 movements every single day. She called me after about 10 weeks and said something I'll never forget. She said, "I'm not afraid anymore. I feel like I have my body back." Dorothy kept going. 6 months in, she was volunteering at a community garden, something she'd stopped doing after the fall because she didn't trust her balance on uneven ground. A year later, at 83, she traveled to visit her daughter in California. a trip she'd been putting off because she was afraid of navigating airports and unfamiliar places. She sent me a photo from the beach, smiling, standing on one foot in the sand just to prove she could. Dorothy didn't get younger. She got more capable. That's what's possible. That's what these movements offer. Not a reversal of time, but a restoration of function. The ability to do what matters to you without fear or limitation. The confidence to say yes instead of no. The freedom to live your life on your terms, not terms dictated by a weak, unstable, fragile body. You're over 60. That doesn't mean you're done. It doesn't mean your best days are behind you. It means you've earned the wisdom to know what actually matters, and now you have the tools to protect it. Your independence matters. Your confidence matters. Your ability to engage with the people and activities you love matters. These 7 movements are how you protect all of that. Kakato Otoshi for your bones. Ashiyubi Janken for your feet and balance. Koshi no Tenkai for your hips and posture. Shiko for your legs and stability. Katahiza for your hip flexors and stride. Shita Undou for your swallow and sleep. Tatami Tachi for your total body function and longevity. 15 minutes a day, every day. No excuses. No exceptions. That's the deal. Your body is a miracle of adaptation. It wants to be strong. It wants to be stable. It wants to work. You just have to give it the right stimulus consistently, and it will respond. It doesn't matter if you're 62 or 92. The principles are the same. The adaptations are the same. You are never too old to get stronger, more balanced, more capable. Never. So here's my final question for you, and I really want you to answer this in the comments. Which of these 7 movements are you going to start with, and why? Are you most concerned about falling, so you're drawn to the balance elements? Are you worried about bone density, so heel drops feel urgent? Have you been struggling to swallow safely, making tongue exercises your priority? Or are you inspired by the sitting rising test and want to see if you can still do it? Tell me, share your thinking. Let me know what resonated and what you're committing to. I read every comment, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take that first step. Remember, this isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up for yourself every single day in small, manageable ways that add up to a completely different trajectory. You can do this. You're strong enough. You're capable enough. You're worth the effort. These 7 movements are your path to a body that works, a mind that's confident, and a life that's fully, joyfully, fearlessly lived. Start today. Your future self will thank you.